Hello, welcome to Only Stupid Answers. My name is Sam Bashor, and joining me, as always, is my wonderful, tall co-host, Mr. DJ
That's
Wooldridge. How are you
me.
doing?
I'm doing all right. How are you doing?
Just talking to you normal, as we would, as if we are in the same room, which we clearly are.
Yes.
We are very much in the same room.
Hmm.
We are violating social distancing. Check it out.
Oh, whoa, you're vanishing, dude. You're
Oh,
phasing.
uh,
You got phase abilities.
I'm tickling
Oh
you.
no.
Oh. Oh, well,
Yeah.
it's creepy for all of us. Welcome. We're doing an MCU rewatch. What does that mean? We're checking out all the Marvel movies that you know and love and sometimes don't like, even a little bit. We're going to dive deep and fish out a good old Easter egg for you boys and girls. And also, genuinely, these are some fun, just thought experiments for what could happen in future movies and threads that could be connected down the road, similar to how in Spider-Man Far From Home, they connected the original scientist from the first Iron Man film that was yelled at by Obadiah Stane, ending up working on the project that built the Mysterio tech. There's some room for opportunities of crossovers and connecting the dots with older movies. So I'm very excited today to talk about Iron Man 2, because initially I thought it was okay in theaters. Then the pop culture zeitgeist buzzword, whatever, made me think it was awful. Then we rewatched it 2 years ago, and I was like, oh, it's okay. And then rewatching it again, I'm like, yeah, it is okay, but in a different way now.
Yeah. You never have the same.
Let's dive into it.
You never have the same feeling twice watching this movie because I was in the same boat where when I rewatched it, rewatched it for before Infinity War. I'm like, not as bad as I remember, and then rewatching it now, I'm like, yeah, but still not very good.
Yeah, it is. It is like a passable, like C plus, maybe B minus. Like it's not great, but I'm not failing you for this. You don't need to go home and cry about this one. It's okay.
You don't need to go home and cry about this one, but it's okay if we forget about it.
We want to dive into the behind the scenes, our theories, as well as some, it's worth kind of clarifying some behind the scenes rumors and also some comic book connections. So first up, let's just quickie thoughts, because we have done a formal review of this. Yeah. DJ, revisiting it one more time, maybe your last.
Yeah, probably.
What did you think? Iron Man 2.
Yeah, it's interesting because there's a lot, I think, to like about this movie. There's a lot of it's funny that I think maybe sometimes the weaker Marvel movies have the opposite problem of the MCU overall. I think the MCU overall, even though like a movie here or a movie there might not work, the overall infrastructure is sound and therefore it keeps chugging along and it's okay. Movies like this, it's the opposite, where like the pieces are cool, but the overall thing is not great. Because I actually really, every time I rewatch this, I'm impressed with how much I think Vanko is actually a really good antagonist, like might be one of the better MCU antagonists, and Mickey Rourke is good in the role. His, especially at that time, his kind of actor, like real world actor trajectory was similar to Robert Downey Jr., where there was like a big falling out and now he was having a resurgence. And so like it's a good use of that. I think obviously Sam Rockwell as Justin Hammer, it really inspired. Sounds a lot like Owen Wilson. So, and of course, this is the first time we get Scarlett Johansson as Black Widow and Don Cheadle as Rhodey / War Machine. And so, like, if you listed all that out for me, I'm like, yeah, man, all that stuff is cool. And then you put it in a movie and it just doesn't quite click, and it doesn't feel like the movie knows what to do with itself or found a way to accommodate all the things that it wanted to try and do. It wanted to deal with the Stark legacy, but also didn't want to be like it really pulls its punches on both Tony and Howard. You know what I mean? Like it sets up like maybe these guys aren't that great, and then it's like never mind, they're actually pretty solid. You know what I mean? And so it kind of pulls its punches. It pulls its punches there, and then it wants to set up War Machine, but it doesn't really quite know how it wants to do that. And then it has to set up Shield and the Avengers and Black Widow, and it just doesn't quite fit together in a way that works, even though there's things that work. Specifically, I think the scene in where Tony's in the race and then Vanko shows up for the first time is like with the whips as Whiplash, and then we see the suitcase suit. That whole sequence is really solid and really good.
Yeah, I agree. And also I do like the fight scene between Tony and War Machine.
Yeah.
The first one when he's in like just the silver suit, which I do like. The plain chrome suit. It's really, I think not. I mean, the first movie has really impressive visuals when it comes to the Iron Man suits.
Yeah.
But in this one, it's the more casual wear where he's like sitting in the booth and he's like in the suit and he's moving it around. I'm like, really, that's not real.
Yeah.
Like that's not a real suit. Like when you look at like Civil War, you kind of get more like floating head Tony a little bit, which that's fine. I don't care. I know more people do, but in this, I was impressed by how real world it looked. And also they really like their sound effects, like the lightning crackling sound from Whiplash's whips. And like when you can hear as they're punching each other, it sounds like two like dumbbells like hitting each other.
Exactly.
It's like, or someone striking a pin into a railroad, like it's like, I don't know if this really works, but overall, like I can tell you guys are having fun, but I don't disagree with you where it's like there's a lot of ideas here. Diving into the behind the scenes stuff, I know famously Mickey Rourke has said he did not like how his character turned out.
Yeah.
He specifically called out Marvel and also Jon Favreau for, quote, I think one of the articles I read was he didn't have the balls to stand up to Marvel, and I was like, okay, I like Jon Favreau. Come on. And he didn't want to be a one-dimensional Marvel villain, and that's what he ended up being. And that I don't disagree that he ended up being that. I think they kind of lost a little bit of the depth to the character that could have been there because there was so much else going on in the movie. But I still don't dislike his character. But yeah, no, they were trying to really ramp up this movie, and the more I read into it, the more like Jon Favreau was hesitant to come back and direct because of how much was going into this. And then Justin Theroux came in as the writer for this film, famous for writing Tropic Thunder.
Yeah, more famous for being in The Leftovers, but
Leftovers.
But that's you're right. The reason he got this writing gig was because he wrote Tropic Thunder.
Which I very much enjoy.
Agreed.
And just cool that he's worked with Robert Downey Jr. And anyways, the more you like kind of learn about it, and this also like the contract disputes when it came to like early days Marvel, we can only know so much.
Yeah.
So like the rumors you hear are like early days Marvel with like Ike Perlmutter, the head, kind of being a little not so kind to actors and other creatives when it came to contract disputes and like dropping Terrence Howard or on-set disputes with Terrence Howard or other things. Like I'm being very vague here and kind of skimming over. If you would like to read more, please do so you can get the full story for yourself. But it's just sounding like there was just a lot behind the scenes that just wasn't working out in favor of this movie. And I think that definitely lended to this movie just feeling a little weaker. They had less time to make it. And famously, I remember watching one of the behind the scenes for the first Iron Man film. That movie was kind of made as they went.
Yeah.
Similar to like a Mission Impossible. And if you hear that about a movie, you're like, ooh, bad news. But then Iron Man turned out great.
Yeah.
Overall.
But then
you
finish your thought.
I was just going to say that this one had a less time to kind of experiment and figure out how they wanted to tell their story. It was 2 years after the first Iron Man film this was released, so they kind of had to get their butts in gear and get this done ASAP. And there was just so much on their plates to accomplish in time for the Avengers and other following Marvel movies. So I think it's the best you can do with what they needed to accomplish, but the individual parts of this movie could have been handled as a solo movie and been very good.
Yeah, and it's interesting. The complaints Mickey Rourke had are later reflected in Rebecca Hall in Iron Man 3. She said similar things where like the conversations were about a deeper character arc that changed during production, and they were frustrated with that. I think when you talk about that first Iron Man, like, they kind of made it up as they went and it worked there. And this kind of shows you the limitations of making it up as you go, because it's when you're trying to not only tell one cohesive movie, but a cohesive movie that's in between a bunch of other moving parts, that you can't just kind of wing it, because then you get stuff where like the back half of this movie that's really rough when Tony's on house arrest and discover his dad had a new element but didn't tell him about it, but then hid it in the Stark Expo, and it's like what's even happening? Like, you know what I mean? Like what's going on in this movie? And like he's dying, but and I feel like this movie maybe tried to do too many things, and I think could have benefited from like honing in more on Tony as a character. And there was a lot of conversation around the first Iron Man, but then also this Iron Man as well, being the sequel around the Demon in the Bottle story arc. Because truthfully, I think that's the only, prior to the early 2000s, that's the only Iron Man story anybody knew anything about. Like, there's the only, like,
yeah, I think besides like Civil War, and I think the Extremis storyline was pretty popular, which is Iron Man 3.
Yeah.
But go on.
Yeah, exactly. So in those,
Bottle
Civil War, Extremis, and stuff kind of around and after the Iron Man movie were pretty popular. Prior to that, maybe Armor Wars, maybe, you know what I mean? But it's Demon in the Bottle.
Maybe.
Yeah, Demon in the Bottle was the classic one. And for those that don't know, basically, I think that might be the story that introduces Justin Hammer in the comics. But the main villain actually is Tony becomes alcoholic, and he has to deal with that. And I think they resolve it in the last issue. He deals with alcoholism, which stay tuned for a review of another show coming up that similarly deals with the truncated alcoholism story. But yeah, and you see hints of that here because Tony has a suitcase suit in that comic. He has the suitcase suit here, which rewatching it, I think that might be my second favorite Iron Man suit after his one in Endgame. One in Endgame is that perfect like movie armor, but it looks like the comics. I like the suitcase suit because it's still got that it still feels tangible. It's not like the nanotech. And also the Silver Centurion armor is one of my favorite Iron Man armors in the comic, and this obviously reflects that. But anyway, in Demon in the Bottle, he has the suitcase suit. That's in this. Justin Hammer's in this. And he, even though the issue he's dealing with isn't his heart, the arc reactor's killing him, he does drink a lot in this movie. And I think it's smart because these movies are kind of targeted towards younger audiences to just kind of not do Demon in the Bottle because that's probably too heavy for the MCU to carry. But maybe using that kind of more self-destructive, because Tony seems self-destructive in this, and then when he sits down with Nick Fury, they're like, actually, there were protocols on the silver suit, so Tony had to let Rhodey steal it, and you're like, that's stupid. Why didn't he just give it to him then? Why was there the whole fight? Like, why? So I think maybe
because he wanted his friend to feel guilty.
Yeah, exactly. He wanted his friend to feel like garbage about it. I think maybe, it doesn't need to be alcoholism because that's a thorny issue, but maybe Tony's getting a big head because he's Iron Man. And also the movie does a lot of like Iron Man's basically created world peace. And you're like, how? He fought. How? Yeah, he did one battle in Iron Man 1 in the Middle East and that's it? Like what happened? But focusing on
yeah, I don't know. He got in a fight in downtown LA one evening.
Yeah, exactly.
And now blew a part of his own factory.
And now world peace is achieved. But anyway, I think maybe focusing more on his own self-destruction and maybe that's tricky because they tried to do that in Age of Ultron, and that movie's a kind of a mess. So who knows what the right way to do things was. But I think there are. Even though it's not a direct adaptation, I do think there are echoes of that Demon in the Bottle storyline in this movie.
And we were talking about this off screen. I was kind of pitching you my theory for how this film could influence future Marvel movies. And you mentioned a pivotal fight scene, or at least a fight scene. Maybe not pivotal. Maybe it didn't change the comic. Yeah. But for Demon in the Bottle, Namor, the Submariner. Is that how I say it? Submariner?
No, Submariner. Submariner,
right? Way cooler.
Yeah.
An Aquaman, if you will. Fighting Tony Stark, classic Marvel character, the first Marvel character, I believe, and then Human Torch right after that, classic Human Torch. Anyways, I wanted to set that up because at the end of this film, when Tony is talking with Nick Fury, he, in the background, you're looking at a map of a potential Avengers Initiative first recruits, and you can see located in Africa a marker for roughly where Wakanda is supposed to be, and that's rough.
Yeah,
it's like a huge marker on just the continent of Africa, and you're like, okay, I guess somebody's there. I don't know how you keep track of people, but also, so that's at least acknowledgement that S.H.I.E.L.D. knows about Wakanda, or at least Vibranium, but we'll get to that later. But also, we see a marker in the middle of the ocean. Now, this is not the first time anyone's been like, Namor in Iron Man 2, Namor's going to be in whatever, but I think this is at least a fair setup for including Namor in future movies. Either S.H.I.E.L.D. documents get uncovered by Natasha Romanoff released a bunch of documents, and we saw that Daniel Bruhl's Baron Zemo started using those documents to find old Hydra agents throughout the world to get information about the Winter Soldier program in Russia. I think there's also some room for more documents being uncovered, them coming back to it, because it was like, hey, remember when that spy released all those documents and then like everyone on Earth disappeared? And so it's been a minute. We've had to kind of take a breather, and now we're going to come back to that. I think having people slowly start to uncover the fact that Atlantis does exist. We're just going to have to accept that now. Not only does their magical wishing stones and giant people, also Asgardian gods are real.
Yeah.
There are people that live at the bottom of the ocean. And the Namor just adds a really interesting dynamic when it comes to the mutants or the Avengers, because he's usually like a bridge between them, kind of like Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver and other characters, or Wolverine. What he can introduce to the MCU in terms of like a Magneto type is very appealing. And currently in the Avengers run right now, he's like a main threat. So it could be just kind of like a test run. You know, they always try that out in the comics to see how people respond to him. And I think he's a pretty beloved. He's got a very rabid fan base that does want to see him in movies. And when it comes to his powers, what has he got? He's got super strength, speed. He swims really fast, breathes underwater.
He's able to fly with those little wingies on his heels.
Does he grow those? Or
Great question.
Put those there?
I think they grow.
I think they grow.
If that's an element they decide not to do in the live action adaptation, I think that's understandable.
Yeah. And also, I know that when it comes to like those, I think we've all, if we're fans, we've seen those Venn diagrams of who owns what in the Marvel universe. And Namor's always been like off in the weird Universal realm for some reason. But hey, that might not be true anymore, because there was the rumor that Marvel was able to buy out the Hulk IP from Universal, and I wouldn't understand why they would hold on to Namor so tightly.
Yeah, I don't think many people are claiming for Namor. So Sam, if they were to incorporate Namor, by the way, you could make the wings like little maybe fins to integrate it better. But anyway, if they were to include Namor, is there a specific way you'd like to see Namor show up?
I think there were a lot of good things that came out of the story with the when they started trying to make the Inhumans the New Mutants. I understand that like overall that's not a beloved part of Marvel's history, because they were just trying to figure out what to do without the X-Men. Yeah. But the idea of people being activated all over the world just suddenly and trying to figure out what to do with that, with these abilities that are now popping up, is really interesting. So if mutants started appearing or they started revealing themselves, and Namor famously has always had like his memory wiped. So you have a story where you have this regular person realizing they have mutant abilities, but also slowly starting to figure out what their heritage is. Mm-hmm. It's very similar to Aquaman in the sense that like he has to figure out what he is as like the king of Atlantis. Yeah. And that is what happens with Namor. But the more, I think there's something really interesting about dealing with one's anger, because Namor is notoriously just loves being angry.
Yeah, he's very temperamental.
So mad all the time. Yeah. And he's a mean boy. Mm-hmm. He's a mean man. And I think there's something really interesting when it comes to exploring his anger, his willingness to serve Atlantis, and also he does care about the world. Yeah. But he does have his allegiances are all over the place. He is a mutant. He is from Atlantis, and he did live on the surface. So there are a lot of ways this could go in terms of who he protects, and that's why I usually do like when he gets paired up with Black Panther, because Black Panther is an Avenger. He does want to protect the world, but also his number one priority is Wakanda. Yeah. And I don't need you pulling what they did with the new Phoenix saga. It was Avengers versus X-Men, where they what do they do? They sent a tsunami through Wakanda and they just like destroyed it. They don't need to do that. No. That's okay if you don't do that. I think everybody really likes Wakanda, and they would be very mad at Marvel if they did that. So that's a bad move. But I think that character is so rich and has a lot of potential for stories. And what we have enjoyed, you can correct me on this, but is seeing the ideologies of like Cap and Iron Man having to go up against one another, and because they're complex characters. Yeah. They're both simple and complex with what they stand for. So having a character that is so complex and can stand for multiple things and is very sure of himself doesn't necessarily mean we'll get like a Civil War II or something. Yeah. I don't think we need that. I agree. But it does lend to some really interesting confrontations with other Marvel heroes and villains. And also, since he's a mutant, that means we're going to get more mutants, and I'd be on board with that.
I will say, so you gave me a couple ideas there. I want to first touch on the idea that this has been floated before, the idea of Namor as the antagonist in Black Panther, which I think on the level of just seeing those two characters go head to head and somebody that could be a legitimate threat to T'Challa and Wakanda. I think that's cool. It is a little weird to be like, Black Panther 1, it's like, okay, here's this hidden society that's high, high tech hidden society. And then the sequel is like, guess what? There's a whole nother hidden society under the ocean. Like that might be a little too repetitive. But even though I do think it would be cool, I do think to distance themselves from Aquaman, I think it'd be smart if Marvel leans into, especially since they don't have the best track record with villains. Namor is an antagonist. Like he is an MCU antagonist. Like he might show up in a Black Panther movie or Fantastic Four movie or an Avengers movie. And like Killmonger, his ideology might be understandable, but he is an antagonist. And that's what differentiates him from Aquaman. Aquaman in the DC universe in those movies is the hero and we're following him. In MCU, he's a bad guy. The other thing that you touched on that might be interesting if you want to distance yourself more from Aquaman is that there is an Atlantis. I think if you say there's an Atlantis and Namor's king of Atlantis, drop the mutant thing, because I'm going to be honest, I've been reading comics for a long time now, and that confuses me. The whole like he's Atlantean, but he's also mutant. I'm like, where is this coming from? What's going on? Ditch it. Or if you want to say, listen, maybe Atlantis is a bit of a stretch for the MCU. I don't know why it would be at this point, but if you feel that way, he is a mutant whose abilities are sea-based, and he becomes basically the Killmonger of the sea without necessarily maybe he creates an organization around his cult of personality, but there isn't technically an Atlantis. He is just an eco-terrorist.
Okay, and also that's interesting because you could, if you did put that up against Black Panther, the idea of him because I know that they want to use, maybe this isn't Black Panther 2,
yeah,
but they do want to use Michael B. Jordan in future movies as Killmonger, more maybe as like he's in that spirit realm, but maybe he's in the spirit realm where he just talks to him.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want him back.
I mean, listen, I want him back too, but he killed him off.
Yeah, but or just more as a way to challenge T'Challa and maybe in his own brain about what if he made the right decision, and having a Namor appear with similar ideologies to Killmonger, and you're able to see how well Atlantis works with that kind of point of view or something similar to it. I think would be interesting and challenging for T'Challa, and having Namor be there as someone who kind of challenges him as a leader, following after everything that happened in Infinity War and Endgame could be very interesting. So that's what I'm getting from this movie. A lot of other stuff didn't really stand out to me in terms of future Iron Man characters popping up, but it is really cool to see. Like Iron Man's cool, but it's similar to when like Ant-Man and the Wasp was introduced, and you're like, well, the Wasp is like way cooler. She flies and she's got guns and stuff. And with War Machine, it's like, yeah, he's got like missiles and Gatling gun and like lasers.
As a kid, I was always a bigger fan of War Machine, and so it's always cool when War Machine shows up. And I do like Don Cheadle in the role. There's part of me that like I guess the kid in me that liked War Machine would like to see like more of a younger action guy, like a Trevante Rhodes. He was probably too young when this movie came out, but like that type of energy. But I think Don Cheadle's really good in the role, and I'm glad that he is utilized more as things go on. I will say, last thing with Namor is you could use Endgame, that one little line where they're like, there's more whales now, maybe the environment actually did get better. And so when everything goes back to the way it was after Endgame, somebody like Namor was like, well, I guess, Thanos showed me the way. I just got to get rid of people now.
I mean, there's a lot of interesting plot threads that they have set up because of those two big Avengers movies that can be followed through in interesting ways. It even feels more like it's more potential than like Age of Ultron. That one was more like, hey, Civil War is going to happen soon.
Yeah.
Like it was like, hey, that's about it. And Wakanda got mentioned a couple times. But here with that, I did want to bring in our special guest.
Yeah.
Now, normally we like to bring in our patrons over at patreon.com/onlystupid answers. That was $5 a month. You can get all the content we have there for that amount. And we've got a lot of fun stuff. But I just know a big Marvel fan. And I thought it'd be very good to hear their thoughts. So I'm going to go ahead and bring them in. Everyone say hello. This is my nephew, Jack. You won't be seeing him right now. He's just coming in. He's just radioing in over Zoom. I wanted to ask Jack, what did you think of Iron Man 2? What was some of your favorite parts of that movie?
I liked when Iron Man is when he puts on the suitcase one.
That's a really cool part.
And I like when the whip guy suit shows up.
Which out of all the Marvel MCU movies is your favorite movie?
Infinity War.
That's a good one.
Doctor Strange and Ghost Rider 1.
Oh, Ghost Rider 1. Have you seen Ghost Rider 2? Your dad let you watch that?
Yeah.
You have seen it?
Yeah, kind of.
Kind of. Because DJ, I know you're a fan.
I'm a big fan of Ghost Rider too. That's I think that's my favorite Ghost Rider movie.
Jack, thank you so much for joining us, and be nice to him in the comments down below. He's got good taste in superheroes, but we want to hear from you guys because you got good taste as well. How would you like to see Namor join the MCU? Is he a villain for Black Panther? Is he an antagonist? Oh, I feel like I almost died. Oh my god, the soul almost left my body. Let us know if you want to see him as a villain for the Avengers. Maybe he just wants to be a mutant. He wants to be left alone. We want to hear from you guys. Follow me, though, and let me know on Twitter at Sam Bashor.
You can follow me at DJ Talks Trash.
At Only Stupid Answers on Twitter.
Yank out the vowels from stupid.
Please check out patreon.com/onlystupidanswers. Low as $5 a month. You can join with us live. We want to hear your questions live, and you can even join us live. And also, there's probably going to be a game night coming up very soon, so keep an eye out on our Twitter. But until then, gang, like, subscribe, do all the good stuff, and we'll see you then.
Bye-bye.